Hi folks, this is just a quick video to show you how we've been tying some bottoms for trodding on rivers. Bottom is basically the section of line from the main line, which is generally of low breaking strain, which is then attached to a hook, loop to loop connection back to the main line. Obviously having a thinner breaking strain line at the bottom, the fish are less likely to see it. If you snag up, there's more chance of your hook length breaking and you getting your float back. Me and my mate Adam Chumley were on the Tees at Bridge probably 6 to 8 weeks ago, and the conditions weren't favourable. The water was up by probably 2 or 3 feet, and it was the time of year when all the leaves were coming off the trees. We weren't catching any fish to speak of, but what we were catching was a leaf probably every other cast, so we were pretty despondent and feeling sorry for ourselves. Towards the end of the day we came across a guy who'd had a bit more success than us, probably a guy in his late 60s I would suggest, obviously very knowledgeable, and he spent some time, probably 10-15 minutes, taking us through his setup, and I think what we deduced from the discussion is that we haven't been doing very much right recently, or ever, when it comes to trotting for fish. Quarry for that day was grayling. I think he ended up with half a dozen. Nothing big, but at least he went home with a smile on his face, unlike us. Things that we'd been not doing correctly is probably the first thing to mention is the bait. I'd been to Rambo's and got some maggots the day before. According to this guy, you don't use fresh maggots. You want to have them at least a week. Riddle them through, because apparently if you get fresh maggots, put them in cold water, they go all skinny and they're not as active. So that was one tip that we picked up. Second tip, let me try and think, is the shot spacing. We've been using shot spacing incorrectly. They advise that you don't put any shot on the hook length whatsoever. It wants to be on the main line, and rather than use big lumps of shot, he was basically using 2 smaller pieces in the place of 1, and then using sort of a zipper button effect, regular spacing back up to the float. Float rubbers, we hadn't been using float rubbers correctly. Been using one at the top and then one at the bottom of the float, but to avoid snagging up, suggested that you put another float rubber midway up the float, which paid to work a treat when we started using them. I think they're probably the main 3 things that we took away. What really got me thinking was the hook length. So I came away and I started doing some research on how easy it would be to start tying my own hook lengths, particularly on spade end hooks, which this guy was using, similar to the ones which I'll be showing you in the video. And 2 pieces of equipment were plain to see when I started trawling through Google. One of them being this Matchman TYER, which was basically for tying spade end hooks. Heard about these when I was growing up as a kid. Never got round to using them for some strange reason. I thought they were a motorised device where you put the hook in, 2 seconds later it was pre-tied, and then you're ready to go. But having used one, that's far from the truth. It still takes quite a lot of skill to be able to use them. And then the second piece of kit is this loop tying device, which I'll be going into in a bit more detail. Before this, I tended to tie my own loops using a Perfection loop, which I use for all of my fly fishing traces. Pretty reliable, but the only thing is with that you can't create a hook length of a predetermined length as easy as you can with these, which we'll be seeing very shortly. And so, yep, and spade hooks. Since I've been using spade hooks, I've had a lot more success. Well, smaller fish probably that you probably wouldn't get on a regular, heavier gauged, regular hook with an eye. So from now on I think I'll be converting over to spade, particularly for fine lines and smaller fish, just a shame that it's taken roughly 35 years of fishing to get this point and realise the benefit in using them. But there you go. Okay, cheers. Get on to tying the hook lengths. Okay guys, the first thing to note on this video, to make things easier for you to see, rather than using thin fluorocarbon, I'm going to be using this two-tone indicator, which hopefully the camera can pick up quite easily. Also, I've scaled up the hook size. This is a size 10 spade end, which again you should be able to see okay on the camera. Ordinarily speaking, I'd be using lines in the order of 0.1 of a millimetre up to about 0.18. It could be a range of lines. I've been using this site-free fluorocarbon material. This one's £3 and it's really fine, and I've even gone a bit further in some cases, and I've used the material that I use for dry fly fishing leaders. See, this one on the right's only 0.1 of a millimetre and only 1.4 kg breaking strain, which is probably somewhere in the region of £3. Hook wise, I'm quite liking these Camerson wide gape red hooks at the moment. I find they're really good for maggots because they're such a fine wire. You don't tend to pop them, which you do with thicker gauge wire hooks. The only thing I've noticed is that the red wears off fairly quickly when it's been in contact with rocks and things, and also if you do snag, then they straighten out fairly readily. But other than that, it's been really good. Right, so probably the first thing to show you and describe is the actual Matchman hook TYER piece of kit. When I've been doing some research on the web, unless they're stamped with MPH Associates, then they're not the real thing. Doesn't worry me too much. I can't see what can really go wrong with something so simple. It's only got two moving parts. First moving part is this pin, two ends, one fully closed loop, and then the other one, if you can see, is a loop with just the prong to the left, just so you're able to slip a piece of line underneath it. Second moving part is this turning wheel that closes up the gap so that you can nip the hook in the end. So first things first, take the size 10 hook, place it in the end, see if I can manage to turn the wheel the right way. So what you're aiming to be is for the shank of the hook to be lined up with the two pins, which you can see. In order to do this, you need to be able to try and maintain a bit of tension on the line you're tying onto the hook. So there I've got roughly probably about 14 inches of line, and to maintain tension, simply in this case just stick it under my lamp stand. So the first step is to put the line over both pins and then back perpendicular to the way the line comes on, and the next thing you want to do is rotate the hook TYER approximately 6 times, trying to trap the line on the shank with the piece that I've got held over there. So we'll go for that. So one turn, two turns, three turns, 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns. You see I didn't really tie the hook tight enough there, but we'll see whether we can manage on with that. And then what you basically do is take this tag end back around the right pin so it comes underneath the loop. This is where you need to try and maintain some tension on the line, so what you do is you push the first pin down. You can see that releases that loop, and then maintaining tension, pull it across. When you get to the loop on the right, press that down also, maintaining tension, continue to pull until you can't pull that line any tighter. Now this last bit of line underneath the right pin is basically going to be pulled, and this loop is basically the tag end which will pull out itself from the coils that I've previously secured under the main line. So untightening the hook, if I pull the hook out, still keeping hold of it, applying a bit of force, you can see the tag end pulling through, and that should have formed the knot on the shank. Which you can see that it has done. What you need to try and do here is the line really needs to be coming off there and on this side of the spade head, so pulling that up with a bit of force just to the underside of the spade, placing it on this jig which I'm going to describe very shortly. Pull, you see that's well secure and going nowhere. Last thing to do is to trim the excess. Try and leave 2 or 3 millimeters of line there. Don't try and cut it up too close, just in case it all unravels. There we go. Hook tied. This is my magnifying glass off my fly vise. I don't know whether that makes it any clearer to see, probably not. Okay, so the next part of the video is just to briefly describe this piece of wood that I'm holding here. Very simple really. All it is probably a piece of wood 14-15 inches long, 3/4 of an inch thick, and I've gorilla glued an old perspex ruler to the top of it, as you can see, and then every inch along it I've used, I think it's probably a 2.5mm drill bit, just to drill through both the plastic and the wood. Pin at one end which I can put the hook round, pin that I can put in each of the holes depending on how long I want to make the leader. You're not obviously restricted to the full 12 inches on the ruler. Basically, if you want to make it any longer, you can put the hook here, line round, back round, and then just use another one to take another loop in. So if I came around both loops and that one, I'd end up making a 16-inch leader. Thing to bear in mind is that the nails that you use, you've got to try and get them fine enough so that you can get a hook probably up to a size 22. On the nail. I think with this nail I've got here, I'll probably pushing it, so I'll probably have to use more of a smaller panel pin for that to be able to work, which I've got plenty of somewhere. Okay, so the next part of the video is creating the loop at the other end to the hook. So as mentioned before, got roughly about 14 inches of leader material here. Make it slightly longer. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to make a 10-inch bottom. So placing the hook at one end, you simply take a loop 10 inches, take the hook off the other end. You see, still holding the loop there, and this is where we get onto the next piece of equipment that we need to use, which is this loop tying device. Very simple, just looks like a discorder but with this weird swan neck bit on the end. So taking this loop, hold it between thumb and second finger, take it over the first finger, take the hook tyer and take the loop around the open bend in the hook tyer, and then what I do, I don't know whether it matters which way you rotate, but it's 2 full rotations of the hook tyer. Now this tag end piece here, you need to slip that in the smaller groove, like so. At this point I'd probably moisten the line, but that mean me taking it away from the camera, which I don't need to do. So now you try and pull that as far up to get as much tension as you can. So now you can see we've got 2 loops of line at the bottom, then 1 single loop in the groove. Now what we need to do is pull the 2 loops back over the full thing, keeping the single loop there. So we've done that. All remains to do is to pull it tight. Take it off the loop tyer, and there's our loop. Again, trimming the tag end. And there it is tied, and just to see whether it has in fact been made to the correct length. Yeah. Exactly 10 inches. How I store the leader for use. Basically try and make it into a coil loop. So to do that, place the hook on 2 fingers and take it round on itself, and the gap there between first and second finger under there, basically take the loop through, back under, I can grab it, back under again, and then it's once more. So I've wrapped it back on itself 4 times. So now if I now take that off my fingers, it should be in one nice neat coil. You can even push the hook round through once more to make it slightly more secure. And what I found on Amazon is these small 2" by 2" pouches. I think they're only about £1.70 for 160, and they're just the perfect size this in, these loops in. There you go. These are the ones that I've previously made on the red maggot hooks. I think that's size 14 on £2 line, 18 on £2 line, etc, etc. People watching this who are a bit more clued up than me have probably seen things which they could recommend I do differently. Some of it will be teaching you guys to suck eggs, bro. Hope you found it informative. Thanks for watching.